Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's wonderful episode where we discuss how our childhood affects our adult relationships. I have a very special guest to speak on this topic, Mishka Sibert. She is a certified life coach, a magician with helping people get to the root of their deep wounds and fears. And her expertise is with inner child programming, helping impact driven change makers thrive in all parts of their life and create fulfilling relationships. Her previous roles always led to her finding quick and effective solutions that allowed her to work on exclusive collaborations with influencers, celebrities, and A-list artists in the film production industry. I'm so excited for you to be here. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into life coaching, Mishka.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for the lovely introduction. Yeah, this is really interesting because I wanted to, I was thinking a lot about why people come to me for certain problems. And I'll be honest with you, since I was a kid, I always wanted to help people. Like, this is some kind of cliche, but that was really because my grandma was my biggest role model and she was very successful, and she kind of became like a local celebrity, I would say. So I would see her like a queen, like leader, and like this powerful woman that was making a lot of influence. And since I grew up surrounded by artists, and with this figure and surrounded by artists, my mom was an artist, my granddad was a film director and TV director, and he was working in the industry. So it was absolutely normal for me to be surrounded by people that have certain impact and influence and like seen and heard. So that was, I just love that. And I wanted to spread the message and learn how to use the storytelling and how to actually bring some positive impact to people. And that was really what I enjoyed. I enjoyed working on something that made some change in this world. And media and art was a really beautiful outlet for doing so. Because when you work with, like, even on music video, for example, with an artist that is very popular and he's sharing a message that is empowering, like, you feel really happy to be part of something that it's like that. But it was really interesting, one fact, that I saw like many of these people were, trained, and they were used to showing up and showing certain part of themselves, bringing the best self, their best food, in the public persona. And it was the same with my grandma. Actually, I was very kind of something that I could see ongo as an ongoing kind of thing. And it felt like they cannot show that she was authentic self in a way, because they had to have certain walls to protect themselves, their inner child. And many of them were driven by their insecurities, maybe, and fears and pain from childhood, that was driving them as a driving force to get that success. And then when they achieved it, they were lonely in that, because people didn't really know who they truly are. And it's, you're like watching, they don't trust people, so they didn't have like a close circle. And I could actually see that as an ongoing thing. But what was very strange is that they started opening up to me as like stranger, whether I had friends that were like big influencers, and they were like even on social media, and I could see like, the person that they shared to the world. But when they were with me, they were like free and like, let's do like crazy stuff, let's just be ourselves. And it was really, really interesting. Like, it was like liberating, because I was so happy that they feel like free to show their truth self and unmask in front of me. But it was very, very interesting. One of the things that happened is that when I started actually asking myself why this keeps happening, is like when I was on a shoot with one of the artists that was like one of the biggest ones, in our country, Slovakia, and he was like sharing something very deep and personal in between the takes of his music video, and we were surrounded by like 200 people, right? And it was like, he just came to me and shared something so deep, and I was like shocked. I was like, what? And I was like coaching him, like, and it was just like supporting and motivating and coaching him and like empowering him. And it was just so natural for me because I've been doing it my whole life. So I was like, okay, well, and I didn't know coaching exists. Actually, I must be really honest. I didn't know that. I thought that I wanted to study psychology or be a psychologist or therapist. And then I found coaching. I was like, oh my God, I can actually do this for a living and help more people on a deeper level. That's amazing. So that's how I got into coaching. It was really kind of, it chose me, I would say. I didn't look for it. Yeah.
That is so fantastic. It's easy to see other people in big roles as being the perfect person, and then us comparing ourselves like, oh my God, they have it all figured out. Like, but it's all a mask. And a lot of times we have to understand, we everybody wears mask, and it's to kind of protect ourselves from being hurt, because we don't want to show up as imperfect, and we don't want to show up as, oh look, like there are certain parts of my life that are not so beautiful and not so fun. But in reality, it's like when you hide that part of yourself and you keep hiding that part of yourself, it becomes something bigger. And it's like you're constantly looking for an outlet. And when you hold that in, it manifests into sometimes like anxiety or depression or, resistance and fears. So that's an amazing way to when you're self-aware that you open yourself up. And that leads me to ask you, like, what exactly is inner child programming?
Inner child programming is like, first of all, yeah, I completely agree with you of that. That is why this is so crucial to look at and to actually pay attention to when those things come up, because they were coming up for me. And that is when I started finding a connection to the inner child, because I build certain stories. Like, not only I'm a storyteller, but I also create on all levels as a creator of my life, of reality, as an artist, and all of that. I'm like full body, like creatrix, goddess, no powers. And that was really something that I started looking into about the beliefs that we have of stories ourselves, because I had certain, like, let's call them inner demons, right? That were really telling me things that were bringing up a lot of anxieties. And when I lived in London, it was even worse, because I felt like I have even more pressure to perform to the best and to the highest level, because I'm a firstborn and I have to represent my family. And my grandma has expectations, everyone has expectations, I have expectations. I try to fulfill everyone's expectations, and that was extremely exhausting. So I fell into this darker hole of like, my soul was crashing and I was like overworking myself, trying to be constantly perfect. Perfectionism was crazy. And I got into burnout and I was getting depressed and anxious and panic attacks. All of that was huge bubble. And that is when I was like, stop, like, what the heck is going on? So I started looking into that. And the first thing that really changed my life, even though I knew about mindset, even though I knew about positive thinking, this wasn't enough. It needed to be go deeper and really change the programming that was imprinted into my mind when I was a child. And the things that told me is like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, that I have to prove myself constantly. So I found, one of the biggest solutions for me was inner child programming, and inner child healing, through one method that I use now with my clients. I call it the acceptance method, because it really goes deeper into your subconscious mind, and you discover the stories that, I call them like programs. Okay, so if you imagine our mind being like computer, right? And all these things were instilled, and that we operate like operating system from those programs that really control how we think, how we behave, who we believe we are, what we perceive as reality, what we perceive as truth. And that truth is really manifesting in our life and impacting who we are in relationships, what we attract into our relationships, and what we attract into our reality. So that is what I call inner child programming, is really, looking at the stories that we believe and believed as a children, but stayed with us into our adulthood.
So it's kind of like when you're a child, you're told certain things, and when you accept them, it becomes a part of reality because you believe those stories in yourself, and it follows you through to adulthood. So part of what you do is deprogramming all those learned beliefs and creating new beliefs. Yes.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely it.
Very cool. Very cool. So, why do we have a hard time forgiving the people that hurt us when we were children? So, for example, all those beliefs that were instilled in us when we were children, we don't know any better, and we learn these from other people. And
Yeah.
as we grow up, why do we have a hard time, forgiving the people that hurt us or presented these stories to us?
It's really quite simple. It's like when we look at the thing that, let's say that our mom or dad like make us feel that we're not lovable or not worthy in a certain way. They tried their hardest, they tried to be the best parents, but they had their own programming from the childhood. So it's like generational. And if they were not aware, then they were trying to be the best parents and like give ourselves something, care and love, but they couldn't be everything. There's no perfect parents. So let's say that our parent did something and said something to protect us, but we really took on it and it really hurt us because it made us feel like we're not good enough, not lovable. And so then when that person says something, we actually remembered it as a child. So it's an adult saying to a child. And now when we try as adult, forgive this person, we're still a child. It is subconscious mind, because that subconscious mind that it remembers that that belongs to our inner child. So it's the inner child trying to forgive someone that is superior to us. And it's something like, I don't want to do that. I feel already frustrated by the fact that a person is superior to me because it was an adult. So one thing that really, so that is one of the things. Also, I believe there is really connection to forgiveness. It's like if we believe that we're giving something to that person, even though it's a gift for ourselves. I was like, I don't want to forgive this person, but we hold attachment, energetic attachment on a deeper level. And if we don't actually stabilize and neutralize that energy that it's connected to that program, that thought, that emotion, we don't release it and heal it, it causes pain for ourselves and really keeps just happening and being triggered in every single situation, in every single relationship, and so on. So that's why it's really important to clear those programs. And one more thing about forgiveness is that really what I've discovered within myself is, for example, with my relationship with my mother, which is the core absolute one relationship, because we shared our body, we were with our mothers, we were just oneness, so one entity, one being, kind of. And that really is what she took on from her mother, came into her body and then into our body and all of that. So it's like really kind of ancestral programming. Some people call it ancestral karma, I call it programming. And so really the point is there that what I realized is like when I was hurt in a certain conflict with my mother and it was really painful, I tried to see her as a little girl that is hurting and it's attacking me because she's hurting. And when I saw her as a little girl, I put her on kind of the same level in a way, but also tried to see the innocence within her. And that really, like, I was like, okay, compassion. Suddenly I started feeling compassion within myself. And that was really beautiful. I wasn't seeing her as someone superior hurting me, but like inner child that is hurting too. And we're both fighting because we're hurt. And it kind of brought a lot of compassion. And that was really important to see it from that perspective.
I love that you brought an example of, because I see it so much in my own relationship with my mother. And I think a lot of people have that relationship with their mother as well. And for me, it was very much like I was always complimented as a child for doing something that she would want me to do. For example, like going to work every weekend. She'll be like, oh, my daughter's doing so well. She's helping me out at the store. And that compliment gave me the confidence to go and keep doing the work for her. But eventually, at a certain point in my life, as I got older, working for her was no longer considered a good job. It was like, now it's time for you to go to college. Now it's time for you to get a corporate job. And that was her ideal view of a successful life, going on to get a good job and get a good education. But I was so
Yeah.
conditioned that I was like, well, I need to stay by her side. She needs me. This is the exterior motivation that I'm getting. And now that the exterior motivation for doing what I thought was always good turned into it's no longer good, I started having so much resentment because now I'm considered a failure for staying in the family business and not pursuing the goals that she had expectations of me to do. And I realized, like, through my own personal process, like how many things that I was conditioned to believe. She told me, oh, don't become an artist because you won't make a living. So these things I started to believe. And I started to pursue business school, and I started to pursue things that I no longer felt connected to me. I just did to please other people, to get that exterior, like, um how do I say, exterior
Validation.
validation again. Yeah, validation again. I wanted to be loved, like I wanted my mom to love me and be proud of me like she used to. So I'm glad you brought that up, because so many times it's subconscious. We don't realize this is happening to us. And when things shift and change, then we start building resentment. Like, I thought you were proud of me. I don't understand what happened. And we're just confused.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to this. Yes, absolutely.
Well, like, when somebody is going through this, like, what is the purpose of this conflict?
Yeah, that is exactly, it's like when people are in a conflict, like, it's not really them. Many times it's not really them fighting, it's their inner children. As I was saying, and exactly like as you're bringing up, it's very subconscious. Like, we are not many times aware that what is happening. We want to be heard. And many times, like, people don't actually want to listen to the other person. They want to be heard when they're in conflict. And they're like, you're not listening to me. No, you're not listening to me. And it's true, because like people don't actually many times in conflict because they listen to the other person. And it's really hard because we are in this emotional bubble and in kind of triggered, and we really want to get the point across, and we lead to misunderstanding. Um, so the purpose of the conflict is to find a solution for the crisis. Something happened, there's a problem, there's a crisis, and we try to find a solution and common ground that is helping both parties. However, when we are in this inner child wounded person, and throwing each other's like wounds and acting out of our wounded self, we actually have no idea what's happening. We're completely like in this like flood, in this chaos, and it's like happening, right? And you're like, okay, this emotional like phew. So this is what I've learned the most from my mother, and with our kind of conflicts, we literally now deal, if there's a conflict arising, we deal with it in a healthy and safe way. What I mean by that is the absolute key, because we look for what is the actual problem, and we listen to what we're saying. Okay, when we listen to what we're saying, and pay attention what comes up, we realize, okay, it's a hidden need that we need fulfilled within a relationship. Oh, I need to my mom didn't know how to ask for help, so she would, for example, say, it was like nobody helps me, and I would literally help her the most. Like, I stood by her during the hardest times. I was the person that was always there, and I didn't know how to make her happy. I wanted to make her happy, which is, I'm not responsible for her, but I really wanted to. It was one of the programs I had to really stabilize and reprogram. Is like, I'm not responsible for her happiness, because I tried to please her constantly and nothing was good enough. And then she was like, yeah, I was like, nobody helps me. I'm like, oh my God, like, can you not? She's like, this. I gave her evidence. And she's like, nobody's helping me. So then what I realized is that she didn't know how to ask for help. And when it was overwhelmed, she said that nobody is helping her. And what she actually needed to learn was how to ask for help, how to receive help, and how to communicate what she needs. So since we worked on that, now she's like, okay, she goes and asks for help, and those things don't happen anymore. And then she also, because I did this inner child program with my mom as well. So she's like, okay, there's a program. Okay, now she knows. She's like, nobody's helping me. I'm gonna write it down, and then she's gonna go and like clear that, because that's why I also love to teach people how to do it themselves. Because it's a tool and it's something that you can do, and I use it. My mom used it today. I use it yesterday as well. So it's really, really important to realize what is hidden underneath that kind of agenda. What is the need, what we actually need in that relationship, and what needs to be fulfilled, because it's our inner child, it's trying to get that fulfillment from those things that we didn't get when we were little. So we try to find it in our partners, in relationships, and everywhere.
Now, you mentioned, walking around with these wounds and how that affects relationships. So, how is our inner child imprint affecting our choice of partners?
That is really something that fascinates me, and I really love, because it's really that I'll give you an example again, because I like explaining through examples so people can relate and actually understand it better. My mom, she's divorced twice, so I have two dads, sorry. So basically, there was something happening like after her second divorce. That was like 10 years ago. It's where I really went deep into looking at subconscious programming, and I spent a decade like studying everything about it and healing those wounds, because I didn't want to repeat the mistakes of my mother. I didn't want to choose wrong partners, and I didn't want to be heartbroken and choose partners that are emotional unavailable and so on. But even though I was forgiving, trying to forgive my fathers and so on, there were still programs that were within me that I wasn't aware of. And that is that, we as children try to find something in our partners and people, and especially romantic relationships, that is familiar. It's familiar, because we literally want, if we want to choose someone that is, providing for us, that is something different from our parents or different from our dad, we're like, okay, well, we, no matter how much we try, this needs to be healed. Our soul wants us to be healed. So we choose people that trigger that. So that's why we keep choosing the same kind of partner. We get into the same kind of situation, and we really get those triggers coming up and reacting emotionally and reliving those things I remember from my childhood, because we want to heal that. So every relationship acts as a way to grow and heal. And when we're aware of that, what we actually need, with our deeper needs, and we give that to ourselves, we are whole, and we don't go looking for those people in a way that becomes unfulfilled because we try to get it from someone. We want to become whole and give it to ourselves and heal those wounds and uh, fulfill our own needs. We really go into relationship consciously and in a healthy way and whole, and we grow together as people, and it's very fulfilling in a way. So in all ways, basically.
I love
So
that. When you mention that, I always think back to toxic relationships, quote unquote, as they call toxic relationships, chasing men who are narcissistic or emotionally unavailable, because in your own relationships, that was something that was not being fulfilled. So therefore, you continue the cycle until you realize, oh, there's something wrong there. This is not right. Why do I keep feeling bad and feeling triggered in these situations? So when someone finds themselves in these cyclic relationships, how can we heal our inner child wounds and change this programming to have a healthy relationship with ourselves?
that's a really important point that you mentioned, because toxic relationships is really something that I struggle with as well. And I was looking so deeper into that, because I looked for the relationship patterns that were repeating as a cycle. And I was like, oh my God, like, how to change this? Like, is this like, am I wired this way? Like, do I have to choose this like partners? Can I not have just like really fulfilling and healthy relationship that is just like this, where I can be feel safe and heard and seen for who I am? And I just found the answer, like people call it like self-love, and I call it self-parenting and self-love, but really self-parenting, and that it's healing, being mother and father to my inner child. And that is really something so beautiful. And that was something that came up naturally as I was exploring it more. And I was like having conversation with the little Mishka in me and asking her like, what do you need? Like what on a core deep level, what do you need that you were seeking in those partners? What and how can you give that to yourself? And then I started doing that, and I was some things like, oh, I don't actually need this from this person. If I want to be with someone, I can be with someone and I can explore the relationship, whatever form of relationship it is, whether it is like business or friends or family or romantic, whatever. I can explore it and see the person who they truly are, not as a someone that, oh, you're gonna give this to me and I need this from you. I'm gonna come as a person that, okay, there are needs that we can fulfill for each other, but there are not all of the needs will be fulfilled, but I can actually come up as a whole person and see you for who you are, and we can explore the growth together, and how I show a truer self. So that was like the self-parenting, I would say, is one of the main things, and with their inner child reprogramming. And I use the acceptance method that for me it's because I do use different kind of guided meditations for inner child healing, so like energy work. But what I do is like I use the mindset and energy work combined, because we cannot clear something just on mindset work in our head and let the emotion be stuck in there. And also, it's when we are trying to release the emotion, we need to find the root, and it's connected to the thought. So it's the combination of thoughts and emotions, because emotions are energy and emotion. So we need to release it and move that from where it's stuck, connect it to the thought, and release it through accepting it. And because accepting is literally stabilizing that energy, that frequency. So it's no longer controlling us, it's no longer popping, it's no longer being triggered, and we no longer create reality from that thought. We make peace with it, and we're free, and and we actually have a deeper understanding of why it happened. We see also a different perception of, okay, this happened and why this happened. And it's really very beautiful and simple process, but it's so powerful and very safe. And yeah, I would recommend it to everyone to do this like life-changing thing, because it's very rapid and it's so easy to do.
Amazing. So to kind of summarize everything that we kind of touched upon, can you give us like a quick, like 3 points of how somebody can start their own healing, and if they need more assistance, how how they can do it on their own first?
Yes, sure. So as I say, is like, let's say that I call this the acceptance method, but what it's important to look for when you do that method is actually to look, for example, now imagine, let's say you started with like the first relationship with the mother, and look for what is like, what would you like to change about the relationship? What is annoying you about that person? Or it's like really annoying you about that person? What do you think it's annoying you, annoying them about you? And what would you like to change? So he's like, imagine just a person in front of you and it's like, oh God, I can't stand that they do this, or they always criticize me, and God, nothing is good enough for her, or something like that. So you start coming up with all those things, and you can write it down. Like I would just journal and write those things that come up. And especially when it's really interesting, keep writing those things, because when you have a bunch of stuff, you can see it's like, oh, this is repeating, this is repeating, this is repeating. To me, it happened literally watching a movie. And I was triggered. I felt sadness. I started feeling sadness because I saw one man and a father of a family and husband acting in a certain way that really was literally my biological dad. And I started feeling so sadness. I was like, oh my God, like I suddenly feel sad. And I started feeling, I started hearing the thoughts coming through my mind and this and this and that. I was like, okay, it's very strange because you feel like you're in a past. Even though you're in a present, you somehow cannot be present. You're like, it's just overwhelming you. That energy is like, so I like, no, I just take my journal, write down those things, and I'm like, and I what I believe. And then so write down, note it, and then go and say, I accept, and the quote and the statement. Because when you accept it, you actually stabilize it and you make peace with it. But the point is that, when you're accepting it, it's actually going to bring up either emotion, it's going to release in a certain way, either emotion or yawning or coughing, or you're going to feel the emotion rising in some way. Like it's going to move somewhere in your body. It's really fascinating to check. So I actually have a whole mini masterclass dedicated to this method, and it's a free masterclass, and it's literally about talking about how to do it step by step, written down and explain, to try for people for themselves and do themselves and really see how it works. People use it for, even I heard some of my friends, she was like, oh my God, I literally was using for money beliefs because it's connected to family patterns. Like when my parents were to believe in my money about success, I use it for that. And it really was like freeing. I was like, yay, I was so happy to it. I was like, that's amazing. Money beliefs, yes. So it can be used for so many things, and it's all coming to the root and really cleansing for the root.
Fantastic. And I know you have the masterclass available, so I will go ahead and link that for anybody who's watching so they can take advantage and work on these healings. Thank you so much, Mishka, for coming on with me today and sharing how to kind of heal, our inner childhood wounds so that we can have a thriving life and have fulfilling, epic relationships.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm so happy that I could share this information, wisdom, and practices and make it help as many people as possible, and really so we can be free and enjoy life to the fullest and not repeat the same cycles that keep us stuck. Really free ourselves.
Yes. So for everybody out there who is watching, make sure you go ahead and check out Mishka's amazing free web class. And yeah, everybody have a wonderful day. Let's start this new year off on the right terms.